All right, instant reaction on a Sunday night. This will be coming out Monday, but instant reaction to Sunday's action of NFL Week 5. So, I don't want to take too long here, but I do want to ask you to please hit subscribe if you're interested in NFL content. Regardless of what it is, whatever team, any specific type of NFL content you'd like to see, predictions, betting, fantasy, talking about specific teams, players, plays, rules, whatever you'd like me to cover, let me know down in the comment section down below. I'm also always down to have fun conversations, banter between fans, things like that. So, let me know down below in the comment section, but certainly if you want to enjoy any of that content and you don't want to miss out, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. That'll make sure that YouTube gets that content out to you when I post it, and it'll help me in the algorithm as well if you leave the like button. So please smash the like button for me if you can. And without further ado, let's get into my reaction to Sunday's action here. So I don't want to take too long on tonight's reaction to Sunday's action, but we did have a really good slate of games. So I've been showing my picks and predictions and reaction videos recently. So I'm going to do that here again because, really the thing first off the bat for this Sunday, Thursday as well, of course, today, or depending on when you're watching this, Monday Night Football with the Jags and the Chiefs. We'll have to see if this still remains true, but my first thoughts and reaction to this week is that it was a crazy week for underdogs and for upsets. Really fun week in that sense. We did, of course, also have some pretty crazy blowouts as well. But as far as just straight up picks, my predictions for straight up winners, not the greatest week for me this week, but because of that. Now, as far as actually betting games, I can talk about that towards the end of the video, but I actually did pretty good there. But yeah, for my picks, you'll see here as I've got on the screen, these top three are pick categories that I have that are just straight up picking the winner. And again, these are picks that I'm making week to week. These are those same picks, but just ranked in confidence and how confident I am, from least confident to worst confident. And then this one is where I track basically the predictions I gave in my preseason predictions video that you can find on my channel. And then this is where I'm entering in my spreads picks, which the interesting thing is overall throughout the season so far, you'll see my picks against the spread are, have overall, I've had a bet worse record against the spread than just picking winners, which makes sense if you're familiar with betting. It's generally going to be easier for you to predict the overall winners than it is going to be to do well against the spread. However, there's reasons why you bet the spread when it comes to actually trying to bet, with sports books and that kind of stuff to try to win money. And that's just because if you're betting on favorites a lot of times just to straight up win, which you would if you're just picking basically money lines, you're not going to make enough of a return on investment to make it worthwhile to have that solely be your picking strategy. Because they're just not going to give you that much in return for picking a huge favorite to win all the time. So picking against the spread, often good for betting if you can get good at it. So again, compared to just picking winners, my overall record this season against the spread hasn't been as good. But the odd thing is this week, it's the opposite. I've done better against the spread than I have at just picking winners for week 5. So I'm going to kind of go through these games as I talk here, but not going to take too long of your time in this video because I do want to make things a little bit more concise here. So first game to react to, of course, from today, international game. This is basically going to be a weekly thing for most of this season. Roger Goodell has talked about wanting to make this a every week thing here soon in future seasons. But if you were up early enough to watch this, good on you. If you weren't, you missed out on a pretty good game in the end there. I did end up getting up and watching it, starting at 7:30 local time for me and where I'm at, but wasn't a bad game. It started out a little slow. A lot of punts in the first half, going back and forth between the Vikings and the Browns. But, in the end, it got pretty interesting. In a sense that the Vikings fans may not have loved it because, they allowed the Browns to stay alive and, really make an attempt at coming back. But for the most part, though, the Vikings controlled the game for the most part. And it was a good game. Vikings get out of London with a win. They finally get to come back home to the States after their 2-week stint out in Europe. We'll have another international game next week with the Broncos and Jets. So that'll be interesting. Obviously, Broncos are going to be heavy favorites in that one. But, so London game, fun. Vikings get the win. They go to 3-2. Browns fall to 1-4, but at least for the Browns, one thing I will say for them is they are a scrappy team. I didn't put any bets on this game between the Vikings and Browns just because I don't love betting international games overall. I had picked the Vikings to win the game, so I was correct there in my, just picking the winner. But, yeah, good game from both teams. And in his first start for the Browns, Dylan Gabriel went 19 for 33, 190 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a rating of 94.3. Adjusted on ESPN, they had him at a 38.9, so not very good. But for your first NFL start, going up against the Vikings defense, with a defensive coordinator who is very good against young quarterbacks. So for doing that well in your first game in London, I'd say that was pretty good by Dylan Gabriel. And again, he had them in position. Well, he and the Browns defense, which is really what's keeping the Browns in some of these games as much as they are. They kept it interesting. But yeah, moving on to the other games. Early slate, there were a lot of games in the early slate that, at least early on, felt pretty boring. Felt like blowouts, and we did still have some that ended in blowouts. Those being the Colts-Raiders game. That one was a massive blowout. 40-6 for the Colts. Raiders just have no life right now. Their offensive line isn't playing very good. Anytime you're watching it, whether you're actually watching the full game or watching on Red Zone, whatever, pretty much anytime they handed the ball off to Ashton Genty, who really does seem like a good running back, NFL caliber running back. The Raiders pretty much all season, outside of against the Bears, have really struggled to block well enough up front to give him much of a chance. A lot of the snaps this week, anytime they handed the ball off to Genty, he was getting contact before he had even reached the line of scrimmage. So, anytime you're getting that kind of penetration through your offensive line, it's kind of a hard ask on your running back and even your quarterback to some extent. But your quarterback in Geno Smith not helping out the O-line or really anybody on the team. Threw 2 more interceptions today. He leads the league in interceptions so far, which is not surprising. He's had, I think, in 5 games, I think he's got 3, maybe 4 games with multiple interceptions. He's had some fumbles as well. Obviously, Raiders in one of the worst positions quarterback-wise in the league, which is kind of crazy, being that, he's had some okay years. He had kind of a resurgence in Seattle, and obviously that's part of why Pete Carroll brought him along to the Raiders when he got the job. But it's not working out with Geno Smith. He's blown a lot of games for them, including the Bears game last week. And, this game, you lost 40-6, so it's not all on Geno Smith. Again, Some of it was the offensive line not playing well. Obviously, your defense is either not playing well or has given up. The defense does have Max Crosby, does have some talent on it. But the Raiders' defense has been giving up a lot of points. But again, to some extent, it's been just due to their offense putting them in bad spots, not being able to sustain drives, get points. So, defenses, that's the thing. Defenses get tired. They, especially if they're on the field a lot, you're getting 3 and outs. Defenses are going to get tired, and that's when they're going to start getting worn down and giving up more and more points. So, sometimes a defense can be made to look worse than it actually is. I'm not saying that the Raiders' defense are world beaters right now at the moment, but I think this Raiders team could win some low-scoring games if their offense could just manage to put up 20 points a week. I think they'd have a better record than they do now. And regardless of points that they're putting up, if they could just protect the ball better and they weren't turning over the ball 2-3+ times per week, they'd have a much better record than 1-4. So, frustrating for Raiders fans there. But yeah, the Raiders get stomped there. That was one of the picks against the spread that I was wrong on this week. And unfortunately was a bet for me as well. I had bet the Raiders to cover the spread. They were underdogs by 6.5 going into the game. And this is just another week, another instance where the Indianapolis Colts, yet again, proving me wrong. I've been saying it basically every week this season that they've been surprising me. And I should say, I actually bet the Raiders at +7.5, not +6.5. So, by the time I bet the Raiders, they were even bigger underdogs by 7.5. So, again, I was getting the 7 plus the hook, meaning they could have lost by a touchdown and I would have been fine. And that's the thing, is I picked the Colts to win this. But, I just figured you're indoors, you're going to be feeling desperate for a win at this point. I just figured the Raiders were going to come out with a little bit more fight, do a better job of protecting the ball, running the ball, that kind of thing. But, this Colts offense and defense, to give them credit, they're a really good roster from top to bottom. Daniel Jones, again, who was a quarterback that everybody gave up on, he had basically quarterback school with Minnesota for part of last year, I guess, and he's now, of course, credit to Colts coaching staff as well. They've got Jaden Daniels looking like he's, a great quarterback at this point. He's putting up good numbers. He's protecting the ball, and that's the most important thing. In the comparing the two quarterbacks just in this game, Geno Smith actually had more yards passing. Now, some of that was in garbage time because you were behind and you were forced to throw, but Geno Smith, 228 yards, 2 interceptions, quarterback rating of 63.2, whereas Daniel Jones, 212 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, quarterback rating of 113. So, and even for the ESPN adjusted quarterback rating, it's even worse. Daniel Jones got a 79.4, and Geno Smith got a 19, which is really bad. So, that's really a big part of the story of the game. For the Colts, the Raiders' defense, to their credit, they were able to hold back Jonathan Taylor a little bit. 17 carries, 66 yards, 3 touchdowns. So still, in the red zone, they gave up some runs to Jonathan Taylor. But for how good of a back Jonathan Taylor is and how many yards he's been putting up this season, some credit deserved to the Raiders there on defense. It's just, what are you going to do when your offense is turning over the ball and putting you in, immediate red zone defense all the time? So, just that's the thing about this Colts team. They've got an underrated roster, and then the quarterback, which is the part of every team that gets overanalyzed and extra credit sometimes. one thing is even if the quarterback is just average, if the quarterback can just protect the ball, not do stupid things, you're going to win games if you've got a decent roster. And the Colts are proving that. And I think they've got a more than decent roster. I think they've got one of the best rosters in the league this season. Certainly one of the most underrated. They're creating turnovers. They're protecting the ball on their own end. They're playing good ball. They're 4-1, one of the tied for the best record in the league with a few other teams, and they've looked like one of the most dominant. So, I keep saying it. Soon here, quite possibly this week, I might have a video specifically on the Colts, adjusting my predictions for them throughout the rest of the season, because they more than deserve it at this point. And I'm done being wrong on the Colts. Again, I was slightly wrong here in the sense that I thought this game was going to be close. It was not at all. Biggest blowout of the week so far. The other blowout this week was the Texans at the Ravens. Texans get the win 44-10. Now, with this one, it was Houston going into Baltimore, and Baltimore missing a lot of starters, including Lamar Jackson. But even outside of the injuries, it's kind of hard to use that as too much of an excuse, just because really ever since late fourth quarter of week 1, when the Ravens let the Bills come back in Buffalo and win, the Ravens just haven't looked very good. They went on and won against the Browns week 2, but then after that they lost 38-30 against the Lions, lost 37-20 against the Chiefs. So still semi-competitive, and those are some of the best teams in the league. But then the Texans, who the Texans have had a good couple weeks, but I mean those came against the Titans and now against the Ravens, who again depleted on injuries and also just probably one of the worst mojos currently in the league, just vibes wise, probably one of the worst vibes in the league right now. I mean, the Ravens are now 1-4, which is crazy for them. For a John Harbaugh led team with Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry as your running back, how good they've done in recent years. It's concerning for the Ravens. But so, I mean, I expected the Texans to come in and win this game. Interesting thing for this game betting-wise was before the end of week 4, the Texans actually, and at the very beginning of the week leading up, I think it was up till about Tuesday, the Ravens were actually still favored in this game by about 3.5. But then Tuesday was when the news hit that Lamar was basically ruled out for this game, and the line instantly flipped, like within a few minutes. And so it flipped from Texans being underdogs to being favored. Sometimes in betting, for the spreads, sometimes that actually doesn't end up being a good thing, but sometimes it ends up being that the new favorite still ends up losing. But of course, the line flipped because of the Lamar Jackson news, which was fair. This was a game that I picked the Texans to win it. They won. I did not expect them to beat up on the Ravens this bad. Cooper Rush didn't look very good. Threw some picks. The Ravens just had no life. Texans looked pretty good. Again, the Ravens defense very depleted, not very good this season, giving up a lot of points. That was the other game from this morning that was meh. It was not very entertaining. Even for fantasy, pretty disappointing one if you had players on the Ravens and stuff like that. So, yeah. And then really the rest of the other games today, really pretty interesting. Yeah, Giants going to the Saints. Giants coming off of a really good win at home against the Chargers, who are a team that everybody believes in. So, of course, who was going to be the favorite this week going up against the Saints? Saints-Giants? Of course, the Giants were going to be the betting favorite at least of the public. And this was a spot that I picked the Saints to cover the spread, and I'm glad they did. Or I'm glad I picked it because they did. I mean, it was an entertaining game. First win in his career as a starting quarterback for Spencer Rattler. He had not won a single game in the NFL up until today. For the Giants, they had a lot of mistakes, certainly, including from Dart. But to be fair, again, this was a pretty perfect sort of letdown spot. Again, coming off of a big win at home against a tough opponent, which is what the Giants did. Then you're on the road in New Orleans, a place that the Saints have historically done pretty good at home. They've got a pretty good home field advantage. They're in the Superdome, good fans. So it felt like a letdown spot, and that's why I picked the Saints to win this. But it was still pretty entertaining, at least throughout the first half. And then second half, the Saints just dominated. Cam Scatterbo, still really entertaining player, really tough, hard runner, even just in the blocking game. Dude is like a bull running around out there. You just hope he doesn't get himself hurt, but he's super fun to watch. And again, Jackson Dart made some mistakes in this game, but for it being his second start in the league, he's shown talent, he's shown flashes, including today. He's got some growing to do. And the Giants, they also lost Malik Neighbors last week, so you're down on weapons. Not the best roster out there, so a letdown spot, certainly upsetting for Giants fans, but especially if you're familiar with paying attention to trying to bet games, this felt like a pretty good, pretty easy letdown spot for the Giants in the NFL. And sure enough, because again, top to bottom, the margins of victory are still pretty small compared to other levels of football. Now, of course, neither of these two teams are all that great as well. So, they're both now at 1-4. So that was the other thing, is that was the reason that you would want to bet. If you're wanting to be a smart bettor and betting NFL games, you wanted to be on the Saints side here. And I should say the Saints actually were favored in this game, but the public side was I'll take the Giants as underdogs. The Saints were favored -1.5. But again, the reason I was remembering that wrong in my head is because to me, thinking about it, it's like, well, to me it felt pretty obvious that it would make sense the Saints maybe get their win here. I mean, yes, I do think the Saints are the worst, if not close to the worst team in the league right now. But even the worst teams in the NFL usually find a way to get at least a couple wins each season. We very rarely have seen teams go completely winless. It's happened, but it's rare. So even for the very worst team in the league, you're going to end up scrapping together a win here or there. When the team gets desperate, that kind of stuff. So, and again, against another team that's not very good, not a winning culture, young quarterback, some injuries. It made a ton of sense for the Saints to win here, which they did. So, congrats to Saints fans and to bettors out there that did bet the Saints. And then Cowboys, Jets, another game that was basically, this was another blowout game. The score doesn't quite reflect it, though. 37-22 was the final score in favor of the Cowboys. Decent game for Matt Eberflus, I will say, going up against his former quarterback in Justin Fields, which, speaking of, I'm wearing Justin Fields' Bears jersey. Chicago Bears on a bye this week, so, what do I decide to wear this Sunday, being that the Bears aren't playing? Well, former Bears player that's still in the league, go ahead and support him. And, Justin Fields, again, had some fun moments, had some cool stuff. Certainly a talented player, but it just, the stat continues to pile. This game contributes to it. Anytime Justin Fields' defense gives up 20 or more points, he's not won a single game. So Justin Fields, again, a very talented player, good runner, can even throw some really good long passes. He's got some talent, but he misses open throws too much. Fails to read the field well enough, consistently enough to where it's just, unless he's got a top of the line defense, he's not going to be winning many games. So, and this was kind of an interesting, as I said, kind of an interesting sort of revenge game, you could say, in that you had Matt Eberflus, now the defensive coordinator for the Cowboys, and Justin Fields on the other side for the Jets, both of which haven't, been having very much success this season, and certainly Matt Eberflus been under a lot of fire for how bad the Cowboys defense has been looking, and Cowboys defense looked pretty good, but of course it was against the Jets, who are winless, 0-5 now at this point. And one crazy part of that's unfortunate for the Jets is, under the current coach so far this season, 5 games, the Jets have 0 turnovers so far. I mean, that's a huge part of the Jets' lack of success. Again, as I've said, Justin Fields, I don't know that he's really the best quarterback in the NFL, but also, to Justin Fields' credit, he's never gotten an offensive head coach. So that is one thing that, you got to give Justin Fields a little credit for. His head coaches in the league have been Matt Eberflus, Mike Tomlin, and now he's with Glenn, with Aaron Glenn in the Jets. So, also, 2 franchises in the Bears and the Jets who are not winning franchises. Steelers, sure, a winning franchise, but again, they, for the last 5-10 years, have been kind of a, hey, we never finished below 500, but oh yeah, basically every year we finish between 8 and 10 wins, yippee, and we basically always get bounced out of the playoffs every year, which again is better than many franchises, but still a defensive culture though. So again, for Justin Fields, yeah, it kind of feels like an excuse, but he has truly never gotten a NFL caliber offensive-minded head coach, which is kind of unfortunate for him. And again, even for defense, he's currently not with a team that has a good defense roster-wise, and who knows about coaching-wise. Of course, Aaron Glenn did great as defensive coordinator with the Lions, but the Lions are doing still just fine, both on offense and defense. Obviously, the Lions have a great head coach. They've got a great roster on both sides of the ball, so they haven't missed much of a beat without Aaron Glenn and without Ben Johnson. That doesn't mean both those two aren't going to be good head coaches, but head coach is a tough job, and certainly only one season, partially through one season in, that's not much to go off of. You need, you got to give coaches more time. But for the Jets and for Aaron Glenn, the bad sign for him is that he is a defensive-minded head coach who's brought in for that reason, of course. And the bad sign is for him, the Jets have created 0 turnovers so far through 5 weeks, which is the first time that's ever happened in their franchise history. They're the only team to do that in NFL history, to go 5 weeks and have 0 turnovers. So for a defensive-minded head coach, that's pretty crazy, pretty bad. Again, I think, if there's any, it is New York, so if there's any calls for do the Jets need to fire Aaron Glenn after one season, relax. I think that's way too early 5 weeks into the season. Of course, me saying what I just did kind of is speaking it into it. But I think coaches, it's unfair to be firing coaches 1 year and 2 year. After 2 years, fine, and even after 1 year, it can. I mean, really just got to see how the Jets locker room handles things, how things go for them as a team. Are they able to find a win here as they start getting desperate for wins? But I mean, they've kept some of these games semi-competitive, but they've all been pretty high scoring. Again, they've not been able to get a single turnover, which is really bad. So, unfortunate for the Jets, but they pretty much got dominated by the Cowboys, made the Cowboys defense look amazing, and then, of course, Cowboys offense, pretty good offense, even though, they're still missing CeeDee Lamb at the moment, but hey, they're winning and still looking pretty good on offense without him. So I think the move to bring in George Pickens was a really good one by the Cowboys this offseason. And probably the best game of the morning was the Broncos and Eagles, probably the most high profile, most watched one of the early slate for the Sunday. The Broncos get the upset win. They go into Philadelphia. They got the win. It was a close one, 21-17. Went back and forth a little bit, but, Broncos won, the Eagles led the game up until the fourth quarter, and then they allowed the Broncos to score 18 unanswered points. So, Eagles kind of collapsed. And it'll be interesting to see what comes out of press conferences and things like that from the players. Obviously, there's been some of it maybe media created, but it's all been reactions to things the Eagles have said, and specifically A.J. Brown. And today didn't look any better between Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown in that passing game. Jalen Hurts did okay, 23 for 38, 280 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, but A.J. Brown, 5 targets, 43 yards, so he was targeted. He was second most targeted on the team, just behind Devontae Adams, who had 8 receptions. Targets, they were about the same, 10-8, in favor of Devonta Smith, but I mean, honestly, the thing is, a lot has been made about the Eagles' passing attack, especially after week 4, and just so far this season and the stuff with A.J. Brown. But really, the story today was the run game. The Eagles couldn't. The Eagles only handed it off to Saquon Barkley 6 times, who got 30 yards. For an average of 5 yards a carry. So they really didn't go to him too much. But, just overall, though, for the Eagles running game, they didn't get much going. But to be fair, this is a Broncos defense that is pretty good. Coming into the season was believed to be one of the best defenses. So there is that as well. And, with the Eagles losing, that was one of the 2 teams left that was undefeated no longer. So they fall to 4-1. Broncos go up to 4-1 or to 3-2, but with some pretty good statement wins. Bo Nix still not looking perfect as a young quarterback, but showing some great talent, doing a good job of protecting the ball and progressing. And Sean Payton, certainly one of the best offensive-minded head coaches out there. So, Dolphins, Panthers, this was a pretty good one. Panthers get the win at home, 27-24. The Dolphins are just having a, horrible season. They're down to 1-4. You're without Tyreek Hill the rest of the way. It is pretty tough to see a world where Mike McDaniel keeps his job after this season. The press conferences with him just, I know at first, the first few years with him as the head coach for the Dolphins, the way he speaks, I know some people respected it and viewed it as, oh, hey, he's just kind of awkward at the pulpit, but he's really smart. Look at what he does on offense. But the way the Dolphins have been playing, they've certainly gained a reputation in the last couple of years of being pretty soft, or really pretty much the whole time McDaniel has been the coach. That's been kind of the reputation they've gained, is that they're a bit of a soft team. They don't do good in cold weather. They don't really do good against good teams. In the seasons that they were doing good under McDaniels, they were often beating up on bad teams. And so, yeah, it's tough to see how the Dolphins don't hit the reset button at head coach. Of course, again, I don't believe you got the right quarterback long term. The problem with the quarterback situation with Tua is the contract structure with him sets it up to where you're pretty much stuck with him at least through next season. So that's kind of a tough one, but if you're the Dolphins, it may end up being that they move on at head coach, maybe at general manager as well, from what I've been hearing. You bring in a new general manager, head coach, and then you either draft a quarterback this year that sits behind Tua for a year or so, or you build other parts of the roster and then you draft a quarterback in 2027. But yeah, things are not going well for the Dolphins, kind of spiraling. And, to lose to a Panthers team who have played scrappy and certainly at home, which they were, but, it wasn't like you were in a cold weather game, so that's not an excuse for the Dolphins. And again, this is also not a winning franchise that has won a lot of games in the Panthers this year. So, I don't know. Not good look for the Dolphins. Titans, Cardinals. This was a bad beat, probably the worst beat of any team today, or really this week. Probably the most upsetting loss and letdown for a fan base at home as well in Arizona for the Cardinals. They just blew this game. If I was the coaching staff for this Cardinals team, I'd be pretty worried about my job security as well there, just because, and again, I'm talking about job security for some of these coaching staffs very early. I'm not saying that they're going to get fired soon, but, or like mid-season, but mid-season firings do happen. Usually not this early, but whether it's mid-season, like in November or December, or it's after the season ends, the Cardinals, now at 2-3, They actually had a decent start to the season, although they were beating up on bad teams. They started the season against the Saints and the Panthers and won both games. So, of course, it looked really good. They started 2-0. But since then, they've lost 16-15 against the 49ers on the road, lost 23-20 last Thursday night at home against the Seahawks, and then at home again, you lose 21-22 to the Titans at home, and yeah, all three of those games, close games. So, credit to them for that. I would say a lot of that credit goes to the Cardinals' defense. I think they've got a pretty good defense on that roster, but the offense just not very good. Not very good in need to have it situations. Kyler Murray just not the most smart with the football sometimes. Murray's another one of those quarterbacks where he's very talented when it comes to running, but sometimes, and you saw it today, sometimes he's one of them where, and Russell Wilson kind of got into this last few years, back when he was still running a little bit better, because Kyler still runs well. Like, he's still fast. He's still, he's a smaller quarterback, which doesn't help him in the passing game. But, because he's so small, he misses open targets, doesn't see the field very well because he literally can't see over the line half the time. And so a lot of times he's doing the squirrely, like, running around in the backfield. And, it's great when you've got a running quarterback that is running and getting north-south, but when your quarterback is just running and doing loop-de-loops in the backfield, that often leads to sacks or you see the weird stuff where, like in the game today, where they were backed up close to their own end zone, and Kyler, to avoid a sack, tries to like dump it behind his back. And I believe it ended up being called fine. If I remember right, they didn't call it intentional grounding because there was an eligible receiver in the area, sort of, but it was very obvious, like, he really was not passing it to anybody. He was literally was spinning around, realized he was caught, also realized he was close to the end zone, and decided to just huck it behind him. Like, there's no way to reasonably argue that he legit thought he was getting it to a target. So, just horrible. But that's the thing. That's not even really what lost this Cardinals team the game. And this is why I'm saying, if I was on this Cardinals staff, I would be concerned, especially the head coach, because the way the Cardinals have lost this game was, it feels like one that reflects bad coaching to me. You had some penalties committed in the game in bad situations, and then really it was just an ultimate collapse for the Cardinals. They had what should have been a long touchdown run that from their running back, DeMarcado, who breaks a long run. And, we keep seeing this in the NFL and college. We see it all levels of football, and it's baffling, especially in the NFL, to still be seeing this. But, player, whether it's offense or defense, breaks a huge long run, and they think they're clear, and they get to the end zone, and they start celebrating a couple seconds too fast. And they think they're already in the end zone, and they go to drop the ball to celebrate. And turns out they dropped the ball before they were even in the end zone. And that's what happened here. DeMarcado breaks a huge run, should have been a touchdown, gets too excited, drops the ball at like the 1 yard line. It goes in, goes through the back of the end zone. Then the Titans, later on a on a offensive drive from the Titans, they get down to the red zone. Cardinals have what looks to be an interception. The defensive back who intercepted it fumbles the ball. The ball gets kind of kicked around. Very Looney Tunes play. Goes into the end zone. Titans have players there able to recover. Ended up being Tyler Lockett that recovered it. And then in the last drive of the game, you allow Cam Ward, a rookie quarterback, on an offense that, came into this game winless and desperate for a win. You let him drive down to the end of drive down to field goal range and to win it on a walk-off field goal. And another reason why this would be frustrating for Cardinals fans, the Cardinals got booed at home. Part of the reason they did is that the Cardinals got the ball back before that final drive. Cardinals got the ball back with, just at the 2 minute warning. The Cardinals got the ball back at their own 35, and they went super conservative. Really didn't run out that much clock, didn't gain any yards. They got the ball. 2 back-to-back 0 yard runs, and then that forced a second timeout by Tennessee with 3 minutes left to go. Then the Cardinals ran a 4 yard run, an 8 yard pass, a 1 yard run, and then had to kick it. So, sorry, So then had to punt it basically at the 2 minute warning. So I kind of had that backwards. But yeah, it was a drive where they got basically no progress. And it was after the last score from the Titans on that fumble. Cardinals get the ball back. If they just drive the length of the field, make some progress on offense, you can run out the clock, maybe kick a field goal of your own, force the Titans to actually have to get a touchdown to win. But no, the Cardinals go uber conservative, don't get anything good on offense, and then give the Titans the ball back with 1 minute 53 seconds left on the clock, and then on defense you just kind of collapse. Which again I think the defense for the Cardinals I think is pretty good, but the whole team just this last 3 weeks they just collapse in late game situations. So it's hard to quite attribute what that is other than coaching. Again, the players are the ones out there on the field making the plays, but it just seems like a lack of preparedness, a lack of focus. And penalty-wise, the Cardinals were the more penalized team. 8 penalties, 47 yards, and some of those penalties were dumb penalties that were in critical moments that kept things alive for the Titans. So I just, and you're at home against the Titans who came in winless to your building, and Cardinals were also heavy favorites, 7.5 in coming into this game. So, and I'm just, yeah. If you're the Cardinals, that's the thing is this is a game that I should have bet the Titans to cover the spread. I just straight up didn't bet the spread at all in this game because I figured the Cardinals were going to win it. I didn't know how well they were going to play, but the Titans aren't good. The Titans have been playing horrible. They've been looking like a terribly coached team. But today, the Cardinals made the Titans look like the better coached team. So that shows you something, at least in my mind. So yeah, very bad day for the Cardinals. Buccaneers, Seahawks, in the later portion of the afternoon. Best game of this window, certainly, 38-35, with the Buccaneers getting the win in Seattle. This was one that I was unfortunately wrong on with my bet. I had bet the Seahawks to win and to cover the spread. They were favored by 3. I do very much love this Buccaneers team, and I regretted the bet once it happened. But to be fair, it was another classic, basically of what the Buccaneers have been doing all season, of game-winning stuff at the end, playing really well. But probably the most interesting thing about this game, just kind of fun fact-wise, was a lot of scoring, obviously, 38-35. This was the first game in NFL history where both quarterbacks passed for over 325 yards and had a completion percentage of 80% or better. So both quarterbacks, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, both played insanely well. And of course, it's made just even better by the fact that these two, they were asked about it in the week leading up to it. These two were teammates for the Carolina Panthers not very long ago. They were both backup quarterbacks that everybody in the league had basically given up on. They were on the Panthers, basically abandoned to the dumps. And even the Panthers didn't want them and obviously let them go. But here they are. Both quarterbacks resurrected their careers, have been doing great since. Certainly Baker Mayfield and even Sam Darnold, to his credit, again, resurrected his career last year with the Vikings, and even now with the Seahawks looking really good, certainly much better than he did prior to that. So yeah, really high-powered, high-scoring game between two teams that I certainly expect to be in the playoff race, at least in the wild card hunt, if not winning their divisions. So a bit of a tougher task for the Seahawks to do in their division, but I think that the Buccaneers are going to win their division yet again. Buccaneers have been a great franchise basically since they got Tom Brady. Of course, they were pretty well set up in like the year or so prior to getting Brady, but once they got Brady, that flipped the switch. They won the Super Bowl. And they've been in the playoffs every year since. So, great franchise in the Buccaneers recently, and then Seahawks, looking really good. They've had some down years recently, but they're on the upswing this past couple seasons, and certainly this year they're looking pretty impressive. Got a win at home, and that's the other thing too. The Seahawks home field advantage with the 12th man there in Seattle. That home field advantage had felt like it kind of went away towards the end of the Pete Carroll era and Russell Wilson being there. It kind of went away for a bit there, but it seems like that home field advantage, as those fans are getting excited about what's happening, that's coming back for the Seahawks. That's a very good stadium, very good fans as far as creating crowd noise and that kind of stuff and having passion, which I very much respect there. So, Seahawks unfortunately get beat at home by 3, but not to a bad opponent at all. So I don't think you should feel too bad as a Seahawks fan. You're 3-2, Buccaneers are 4-1. Again, you very well could end up meeting in the playoffs. So final 2 games Sunday late afternoon, I'll say. Lions at the Bengals. This was a blowout win for the Lions, 37-24. The score looks a little bit closer than what it felt, but just Bengals probably one of, if not the most disappointing teams, most lifeless certainly since losing Joe Burrow. Browning at quarterback, tons of interceptions, horrible at protecting the ball. Pretty deflating for the Bengals. How their season's going without Joe Burrow. Again, just not a great offensive line either. But, late in the game, in the fourth quarter, the Bengals did score some points and make things interesting. That's really why the score was as close as it was. But in the end, the Lions still got the win, covered the spread of 10.5. So, again, it was still a beatdown. Commanders at the Chargers. Jaden Daniels coming back from injury, looked pretty good. Not perfect. Went 15 of 26, 231 yards, 1 passing touchdown. Some good runs as well. But Commanders getting the win on the road, 27-10. The Chargers, injuries, especially on the front, on the offensive line, definitely showing to be a factor now for the Chargers. They've lost 2 games straight, and Justin Herbert, that offense has looked much less effective in the last couple weeks, and it's hard to attribute that to much other than the injuries to especially the tackles. Very key positions, underrated positions. Chargers just haven't been able to run the ball as well, haven't been able to protect Justin Herbert well enough. And so, the Commanders come into town. Good team. Again, you're getting Jaden Daniels back from injury. Also had managed to scrap together some good stuff while he was out. So, Commanders got the win on the road. They go back home. They get an extra long week to prepare for Monday Night Football, which will be against the Chicago Bears in Maryland. So, that'll be an interesting one Monday, a week from now. And then Sunday Night Football. Thankfully, probably the most entertaining game of the week. Certainly so far. Well, I don't know. We've been blessed this season and this week. A lot of good games. I don't know that really this was the best game, but it was very close. It was a very low-scoring game in the first half. They went in 6-3 in favor of the Patriots. Very defensive matchup in the first half, which makes sense. You got 2 defensive-minded head coaches with rosters that are very much buying into the message. Certainly with the Bills, franchise that's established in winning, getting to the playoffs in recent years. But Patriots, who have been struggling, but they're certainly growing and buying into what Mike Vrabel is bringing back to the Patriots now as a coach. Patriots go to, but yeah. So first half, really low scoring, and then coming out of it, it had been called out on the broadcast that we might see some heavier scoring in the second half. That call was kind of from Collinsworth. He predicted it. He said, hey, like, a lot of this too is not just the defenses, it's also just some dumb mistakes happening from either team. You had some fumbles, some penalties, things like that were contributing to the low scores in the first half. Sure enough, both teams came out and both teams scored 7 points in the third quarter. Both teams came out and scored 10 each in the fourth quarter, with the Patriots getting the walk-off field goal win, or sorry, not walk-off field goal, but game-winning field goal for the Patriots, leaving only it was less than 20 seconds on the clock for the Bills, and the kickoff also for special teams for the Patriots was great. It landed in the landing zone. That's a mistake that we've seen some teams make in late game situations this year, but kicker got it into the landing zone, landing just right at about the 1, which was perfect. It forces the returner to actually receive it and bring it back out, and it gets into that landing zone, so you're not getting the extra penalty yards or kicking it out of the end zone. So not only are you not giving up the great field position to the other team, but also you're forcing the returner to return it and waste clock, because the Bills, again, it was under 20 seconds and the Bills were out of timeouts. Now 20 seconds, if you get the ball at the 30, for example, with 20 seconds, you got Josh Allen, you're probably fine. You can get into field goal range from there, but the returner returned it, tries to make some yards, and I will argue, the returner, as soon as he realized he ran into some opponents, he tried to do a little bit of going side to side. Really probably should have just slid down and ended it right there, to save the Bills at least a couple seconds on offense to try to get at least one more play, but still likely wouldn't have mattered too much. Patriots handled the late game situation pretty good. Again, special teams, all of it, managed that late game scenario pretty good. So credit to Mike Vrabel as head coach and that coaching staff. They get the upset win on the road in Buffalo, 23-20, and Patriots go to 3-2, and the Bills fall to 4-1. And with that, the Eagles and Bills this week had been the only two teams coming in that were undefeated. We now no longer have any undefeated teams left in the league. So already here, after only 5 weeks of 2025 action, we no longer have any undefeated teams. So, if you were hoping to have an undefeated team this season, better luck next year. But yeah, this was an entertaining game. Also, for me, it was entertaining because coming into this game, I bet the Patriots to cover the spread, and I had some other prop bets that hit, including some yards for Drake May, some other things, receptions. I had bet the over on receptions for Stephon Diggs, which hit. He had a monster game in his return to Buffalo. He didn't shy away from the fact that it meant a lot to him, which was respectable. You saw at the beginning of the game they covered it. Some embraces with former teammates, Josh Allen, other teammates from the Bills, McDermott as well. And then at the end of the game, Mike Vrabel did give game ball to Stephon Diggs, which was earned. He had a pretty good game in his return to Buffalo there. So Patriots got the win. And also to the credit of Drake May, he played pretty good. It wasn't a perfect game. It wasn't necessarily the most flashy, but 22 out of 30, 273 yards passing. Also had a couple good runs three carries, 12 yards in some key spots. And Josh Allen played fine, but 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Both quarterbacks actually ended up with pretty much the same quarterback rating. Normal QBR, normal quarterback rating. Josh Allen's was actually slightly better at 103.3 compared to Drake May's 101.1. But for ESPN's QBR rating, where they adjust things, Drake May actually comes out with the better quarterback rating at 64.1 and Josh Allen at 50.5. So, still pretty comparable. Both teams played it pretty evenly. Again, it came down to a field goal in late time situation. If you had just had a few more seconds on the clock, I don't doubt that the Bills would have driven down the field and been able to hit a field goal to go into overtime. I mean, honestly, halfway through the fourth quarter, I was like, are we going to overtime? I think we are. This feels like an overtime game. And yeah, we were very close to doing it. So, didn't end up happening, which great for New England and their fans. They get the win. Very entertaining Sunday night game. And that wraps up the action for us. So, that'll be all for my reaction. I hope you've enjoyed it. Certainly, if you've stuck around, I appreciate you. Don't forget to hit subscribe, smash the like rating for me, and I will see you in the next video.